So let's get started. तो अभी तक हमने स्पार्क का जो पढ़ा था, the one of the aspect was we started dealing with files. हमने फाइल लोड करते थे. We used to modify, do some transformation and save it. And उसके बाद हमने डेल्टा लेक देखा. डेल्टा लेक के अंदर we started dealing with tables. Tables के अंदर transaction scheme. We started dealing with tables. We can do many different things, transactions, and look at the versioning, history, many different things. It provided us at a very high scale. So what we are looking at is Spark का जो main analytic engine है, that does analytics at a very, very high scale and in a distributed fashion. We are seeing कि industry ने, and primarily Databricks, what enhancements it did as it got adopted more and more into the enterprise, and what were the missing pieces, and how it was filling in with those innovations, right? So continuing with the same thing, now what we have seen is that Spark, after we added the Delta Lake part, it fixed a major part from the enterprise perspective. But another thing we have seen is that there is no central place where we can go and find different objects. क्या tables हैं, क्या different objects हैं, क्या views हैं, functions, on and on and on. What is there, right? Nobody has any clue. We have no central place. This one database होता है. Database के अंदर we can go and find what are the databases, what are the different, for example, methods are there, tables are there. We have no idea over here, right? So we'll see what Spark does by itself. What are the different add-ons, and then we'll see what has become the industry standard in dealing with that, right? So that's the basics or the background of the problem domain that takes us into Unity Catalog, okay? Which is unified governance for all data and AI assets, okay? That is the problem domain that it takes care of. Okay. So Spark has no idea, right? Every time we start dealing with whatever, right? Whatever object, the user has to tell it, whether it's the files, whether it's the tables, whether it's the delta tables, whatever it is, we have to know beforehand what we are dealing with. And that is a very problematic thing. Nowhere we deal with something like that, right? In databases, anything, somebody tell us, okay, this is what it is, where everybody is going over a unified layer to find out what things are. But Spark, अभी तक हमने देखा, there is nothing available, right? हमने अभी तक files, when we start dealing with, we are loading the files. We have to know what it is. और हर दफा हमने schemas का we had to find out, right? और डेल्टा लेक ने it fixed many of those things, right? उसने एक common schema, unified schema, central place schema, statistics रखी उसने. It did lot of those things, right? But Spark itself had no clue. And even with Delta Lake, I mean, we had to go and find out what Delta Lake has, basically, right? तो अगर आप एक नोटबुक के अंदर कोई चीज बनाते हो, टेबल बनाया फाइल की, somebody else has to find out, or you have to know intimately what is happening on your storage layer, right? There is no central place for us to find out those kind of things. So either we have to find out what the schema is, right? Or we have to inference the schema, perform a schema inference. Of course, Parquet take care of these things, right? Parquet allows us. But again, every time we have to know कि क्या schema है हमारे पास, right? What is the schema of that object? Delta Lake took care of many of these things, right? So Spark ने, for example, let me just open up my environment as well. तो हमने जब सबसे पहले किया था, when we said create or replace temp view, right? If you remember this command, so it was registering this data view somewhere where we can invoke it later on, right? और ये इनकी Spark की internal catalog होती है, which exists only in the session. Nothing, if I go log out, log back in, Spark restarts, it's gone, right? Then we also did something, create or replace global view or something like that, right? If you remember. And that was something globally available in the Spark cluster, right? जी मैं record कर रहा हूँ. You can mute and you can ask me. Don't ask me questions. I'm not looking at the chat. Okay. So आप unmute करके मेरे से directly सवाल पूछ लिया करो. I'm not looking at chat. So yes, I'm recording this thing. Right. So we saw this kind of very small view into this one. Okay. To take care of this, a meta store was created called Hive. Right. And Hive meta store, let me just make sure I can start this environment. And generally it's basically HMS, Hive meta store, right? So Hive meta store, if you look at it, let me just open my repository again in my Spark cluster. If I go back over here, let me just make sure I've added my stuff over here or not. Spark की जो है ना इसमें master. Let me just make sure. Yes, you can see this is how you turn it on. Okay, you are telling it that I want to store my catalog using Hive. Okay, और उसके अंदर the directory is this one. Okay, so Hive meta store you just enable it through the through the Spark की जो वो है configuration. This is how you start with. Okay. इसके अंदर I want to see also if I have done something. Let's see. So this is how you provide. So now you can basically provide a mapping, and anybody can query Hive's meta store, and it can provide the underlying mapping, right, between tables and files and all that. You can find out things at a cluster level. So अभी तक जो हमने किया था, if we store the global view or the temp view, you can store that in Hive meta store, and somebody can query and see what is available over there, right? And whoever is working on the same cluster, same environment, they can find out from, for example, what they have available to query and use and update, right? So you also have the capability in Hive meta store that if you have multiple clusters running, two teams who working on different clusters can, for example, see the changes, tables introduced and all that. And there, for example, you can have a cluster with production and a cluster, for example, what you call a dev test production, right? And they can have same Hive catalog basically, or Hive meta store, right? And you can give certain permissions on something, certain things over there. Okay? So you store the schemas in MetaStore, and basically you don't have to worry about scanning files and storage, right, to infer. So it gives you a lot of capabilities, right? Hive MetaStore. So that was there since forever. But so what you do is, here are your few configuration options. You provide that catalog implementation is Hive, warehouse directory, I've shown you this one. And then Hive meta store behind the scenes, it's connecting to a database. It is storing all the configuration in a Postgre database. I think you can use different ones, but you provide basically which database it needs to connect to. Okay? And it will start working. It will store everything there, and you have a cluster, enterprise-wide, basically Hive metastore available that you can configure with Spark clusters. Okay? And there are other connection options as well. Right? So you set up a Postgre. I'm not sure if it supports other databases. It might. I'll check on that one as well, right? But basically, these are three main things that you need, right? To set up Hive and you have Hive catalog available by default in Databricks as well. Okay, it is by default enabled for you. By default, when Hive is like a 20-year-old thing, when it was created, it was built basically for single cluster metadata management, right? Later on, a lot of enhancements came as things scaled, but now we are moving towards cloud, right? And generally, what happens is you have people working on different clusters. How do you enable, for example, from the security perspective and various different things? So policies you want to apply on every cluster, it doesn't have a very nice way to do that. There are a lot of shortcomings. Again, 15, 20 years old technology, and this is what was working on, right? And Databricks saw those things, and industry knew that, right? So when the cloud revolution started, this was one of the very big piece that companies want to take care of. And that was becoming a very big, what you call, reason of lack of adoption in enterprises. It was not built for cloud. We have new identity and management, access management systems, latest, which Hive was not suitable for, or it never was intended to work for those kind of things, right? So those were things. Then you have now AI, ML models coming, different kind of data streams coming. So many different things were coming that Hive was never meant to work with, right? And those were a lot of shortcomings to becoming a very modern metadata management layer, right? Then permissions were not granular, right? At a table level, I can provide, but a lot of time we need column level permissions, especially when you have columnar data. You want to be able to provide what kind of permission somebody can have on these things, right? What columns they can see or they cannot see. So you do not have those, again, the new advances which are being done in the big data, industry or these things. It was simply not updated for those kind of things, right? Then another big thing does not have lineage. For example, we saw the lineage in this thing, Databricks, right? And the Delta. So Delta, you can see lineage, what happened, where this came from, that kind of thing. It was some not complete, but it provides lineage. But if you want to see lineage of where this thing came from, this is for example, if I'm building the table, where these columns came from, because of whichever ETL it is, whichever other table or bronze table it picked from, and where it is going to, what is dependent on this. You do not have any kind of that, right? Auditing, governance, tracking, it simply does not have those things, right? It did whatever it was built for very nicely, but all the modern data warehousing and big data platform requirements, it simply did not have, right? So what happened basically? जी फिर lineage मैंने आपको बताया था। हाँ, ये मैंने आपको इसमें हमने पढ़ा था डेल्टा के अंदर that it can show the lineage, right? और lineage होता है कि for example it can say कि what you did on what to get to this point. So, for example, the history is part of that lineage. वो आपको बताता है, for example. So that's a very basic form of lineage that delta captures. वो बताता है आपको कि you were at this point और यहाँ से आपने XYZ किया है, ये transformations किए and you get to this point. आपको सारी वो tracking और auditing नजर आ रही है through the history or the time travel, right? So I can find out कि मेरी कौन सी transformation caused this. So that is what we call lineage. ठीक है? I can find out, for example, मैं ETL job मेरी run हुई है, I can see कि क्या क्या changes हुई हैं, I can, so जिस तरह a kind of a lineage or a family tree kind of होता है, that shows, for example, kids, father, grandfather kind of thing, right? You can go back. Similarly, data के अंदर you want to see where this thing came from, right? आपके पास table ABC थे, DEF आपके पास है, what is the lineage? कहां से डेटा आ रहा है? ये कॉलम्स मेरे पास 5 कॉलम्स हैं डी टेबल के अंदर. Where these came from, right? This is what lineage is. Which table this is dependent on, right? That's the idea. तो यहां पे फॉर एग्जांपल जी नहीं, मैं बताना चाह रहा हूं वी डू नॉट हैव अ सेंट्रल प्लेस. ठीक है, मेरे सेशन के अंदर डेल्टा टेबल डेल्टा लेक के अंदर है, बट इट्स ऑल्सो वेरी मिनिमल. ठीक है, अभी मैं दिखाता हूं आपको कि वेयर वी आर हेडिंग टूवर्ड्स विद यूनिटी कैटलॉग जो इन्हेंसमेंट्स हुई हैं. अभी तो हमने ये देखा है कि हम रिवीजन पुल करते हैं, बट देयर इज नो इजी वे टू लुक एट थिंग्स. और अभी वी आर ओनली लुकिंग एट फॉर एग्जांपल वन टेबल. I want to see, for example, there is no way for me to figure out कि if I want to see where this thing is, मैं आपको टेबल दूं, there is no easy way to figure out where the columns came from. जो lineage भी दिखा रहा है डेल्टा में, that is also very limited, right? And there is no central place. There's lot of things happening. It could be, for example, आपने टेबल क्रिएट किया है and आपने out of the, I mean, fresh क्रिएट किया है. I want to see if this is a starting point, and for example, and what it is depending on. So it can see, for example, what is dependent on this. I want to be able to see that, right? Because what happens in real in the enterprise environments, कि आपने किसी ETL job को छेड़ना है, you need to know कि मैं what it will affect. And it's not easy, and its information is very limited from Delta to figure those things out. आपको अपनी ETL jobs में देखना पड़ता है, and you know those kind of things. तो Delta के अंदर जो lineage है and auditing है, it's very limited, right? And those are the shortcomings basically. जी जी. I mean, very good point, right? I mean, why I am doing Spark on Docker is to train you guys how things work behind the scenes, what is happening, what are the different parts of the system, which Databricks completely hide from you. ठीक है? अभी भी आप बहुत सारी configuration है that you can control in Databricks, but understanding the architecture, Databricks hides everything from you, right? So you never understand what is happening behind the scenes. So this gives you very nice way. अब जिस तरह मैंने आपको डेल्टा दिखाया था, ठीक है, डेल्टा लेक. अब डेल्टा लेक unless you look at for example ये डेल्टा टेबल्स हैं यहाँ पे जो मैंने बनाए थे, I mean if you don't see this and it's not an easy way, it hides everything from you, right? All the complexities, what is happening, you would never learn actually what is happening, how delta lake works, right? What is the transaction logs. I mean, it is everything is sitting in some file system somewhere in the remote storage, right? And it's never visible. But here we can actually see each and everything how delta lake works. So this is how you learn, right? And then not only that, your company can say, we do not have money to buy Databricks or to get services on Databricks, right? I want you to set up this whole thing on premises. You will be stuck, right? But here, you can actually take this, use this, and set this whole environment in a highly resilient way in your own environment on premises, right? Because Databricks is not cheap. So if you are doing, especially in our environment, right? Local companies can say, I mean, do all this stuff. We don't have money for Databricks. Or we don't want to put the money in, for example, Azure or GCP or AWS. We want to keep our data over here, right? So many things can come. So we need to know, understand the whole architecture. And that is why, I mean, Databricks, Spark, Microsoft, everyone goes into detail in writing the whole architecture, how things are working, what is happening. And for us to understand, this is what we do, right? So containers are the best way to learn in and out of the architecture of these platforms, right? And that is why, I mean, these companies make it possible, right? Microsoft and SQL Server, their SQL Server service, it's running on cloud. You don't have to do anything, but Microsoft has made the latest version of SQL Server available in a container. And that's how you go underneath the architecture and understand how things are working, right? So it's very critical, right? Especially if you want to learn something and want to master something, that you have hands-on with the system and the underlying architecture, right? It's very critical. Or later on also, anyway. So that's generally the idea of these things, right? It's a different pieces which Databricks has done for you, but again, for me, I mean, you're building the Docker file, right? It is the most enlightening experience how Spark works actually, right? What are the different things? How do you control? What are the different libraries? What are the different things working together, right? That shows you underneath how Spark works, right? So learning के लिए you can have different levels of learning. One is to learn at a high level. You learn and you know how to use it. But I think the level that you want to learn is to master the platform, right? So again, we're not going again too much, right? और मैं आपको थोड़ी सी configuration दिखा देता हूँ and we start using the system and go into notebooks. But there is a whole world behind it, right? So it's good to read and do these things by hand so you can play with different configuration. And a lot of times you will see that database will tell you, use this configuration option, use this configuration option in your, modify this configuration option, for example. And you should know what is happening. And this is what we do in our environment, right? जिस तरह मैंने आपको उसका बताया था वो जो है version history का, time travel का, how it is blocked for less than 7 days, default is 7 days, what does it do? Same thing is happening on Databricks as well, underneath the Spark engine है. So when you know कि क्या उसी configuration options हैं, what it is doing and all those kind of things, it gives you really, really much better appreciation and understanding of the system. But again, this is the philosophy of doing this by yourself, and to be prepared for both scenarios where somebody can use Databricks or you will be forced to use Spark on premises, right? Which happens a lot especially in our country and our environments, right? So that is basically the motivation of this. Is it आवाज देर से आ रही है कट रही है? अच्छा मुझे तो बताना अच्छा I'll keep an eye. Let me see if we can switch to cable connection as well instead of Wi-Fi. एक सेकंड दे रहा हूँ. Let's see if it fixes something. Stay. So now let's look at some of the issues, right? अब हमारे पास नए डेटा वेयर हाउसेज हैं, हमारे पास डिफरेंट डेटा लेक्स आ गई हैं. वी हैव टू सेट परमिशंस. So many things have to happen. So now we have folders, we have different files, and different people need different permissions, right? So now we don't have that thing currently built in, right? Row level, column level permissions, if we need to, or how do we do, for example, if policies change, how we can do it centrally. But data lake मैंने आपको बताया था, it's the storage layer, right? How do we do that? We need something in the middle that takes care of all of those things, right? Permission structure. अभी तक हमने ये देखा है कि हमने सिक्योरिटी को टच नहीं किया एज सच कि स्पार्क के अंदर what is the security framework, right? And again, when we're talking about storage, when we're talking about files, tables, so on and so forth, right? What do we do? How can we have a universal way, right, to do that? उसके बाद डेटा इंजीनियर्स होते हैं, उनको टेबल्स के ऊपर, कॉलम्स के ऊपर, रो के ऊपर परमिशन चाहिए होती हैं, राइट? In the data warehouse, how do we do that? You have different things coming, different models coming, different kind of data is there, and you have different roles. How do you combine and unify all of that in a central way, right? Same thing, आपने ML models अब इस्तेमाल करने शुरू कर दिए, आपने उसके लिए different features हैं, different ML ops. We will take a look at that as well, right? How do you give different permissions universally across all these different kind of datas, dashboards, features, whatever you have, right? तो हर एक का कोई different governance है, different चीज है. How do we unify each and everything? That is the model basically, right? The issue or the problem domain that we are going towards, right? And for that, Databricks again did the main innovation. जिस तरह उन्होंने Delta Lake में की थी innovation, and they made it open source. Exactly same thing they did with Unity Catalog, and they made it open source, right? So if you go, for example, I can go to unitycatalog.io, I think. Let me check. Unity Catalog, open source. Yeah, it is unitycatalog.io. Yeah. Okay. So every system is using it right now on the cloud everywhere. And it's really, really very, very big. I mean, it has become like an industry standard. So again, Databricks did this thing. Databricks did the innovation. And right now, pretty much every system is using it, right? On every cloud environment, everywhere, they're using it, right? So this is available. And again, there is it's a very good exercise, again, to combine Unity Catalog container with your Spark container, right? Build kind of your in-house Databricks environment on containers. It is an amazing learning experience, how things work, how the security framework works, and how you do integrate these things, right? You really, really appreciate and see how things work basically. So this is what it is, right? They said everything we will control will have the Unity catalog layer that will allow you to control in a universal way everything, right? तो इससे पहले हमारे पास data lake थी, which is all for all practical purposes a storage layer, whether it's Azure, AWS cloud, or our local system, which what we've been doing, right? And then we added the layer of Delta Lake, right? We added this thing where we did the data reliability performance at the storage level. हमें in memory की जरूरत नहीं थी because Spark was there already. हमें storage level के ऊपर चाहिए थी issues because Spark was not able to handle storage, resilience, in a reliability, in a very performant way. It does not have, right? जो हमारे नए सिनेरियोज थे टेलीमेट्री के, रियल टाइम स्ट्रीमिंग के और रियल टाइम एनालिटिक्स के, राइट? As things are coming, how do you deal at a petabyte scale, right? That's what Delta Lake sorted out. And then this next innovation, it added another layer in between, right? That everything, all of your commands, all of your working with the data goes through the catalog layer. So जो सारी जो deficiencies थी Hive Metastore की, they fix it for the modern enterprise environments. They fix it using Unity Catalog. तो अपने storage के साथ काम करना है, आपने जो कुछ भी करना है, Unity Catalog is the way to go through. आपने table बनाना है, delta table बनाना है, you will ask Unity Catalog. आपने storage layer बनानी है, storage add करनी है, you will add to Unity Catalog. You will give permissions. आपने model register करना है AI का, you will go through Unity Catalog. On and on and on. For everything, you go through Unity Catalog, right? That is the idea, one universal way of dealing with everything, right? And then, I mean, in the enterprise, आपके Unity Catalog के पास जो होगा, if you have certain data, you can search, you can discover, and again, anything you are doing, it provides automatic lineage, right? आपने टेबल बनाया, आपने ETL जॉब बनाई, उसे थ्रू ETL जॉब, थ्रू द एक्शंस एंड ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन, आपने एक और नया टेबल बना लिया. इट विल शो यू कि आपको जो नया टेबल बना है उससे कॉलम्स आर कमिंग फ्रॉम वेयर यू आर पिकिंग द डेटा. आपने उस नए टेबल को यूज करके एक और टेबल बनाया, इट विल टेल यू कि बेस्ड ऑन दिस इज, इफ यू डू समथिंग इट विल अफेक्ट दैट डाउनस्ट्रीम दैट कॉलम एज वेल इफ यू डू समथिंग, राइट? इट विल शो यू. इट इज very sophisticated lineage it provided, right? And again, very transparent. Whatever we've been doing, it integrates seamlessly, right? Just like Delta Lake did. Whatever you've been doing, it said you don't need to change anything. You continue doing that, but I will provide the governance, and we will see that shortly. वहां पे हम it's not a folder. You can think of that as a, for example, a security layer, I would say. For example, just to give you an idea, आप यूनिवर्सिटी के अंदर आते हो, they scan your card. All they do is scan. They don't have your data. It goes and checks somewhere else. And if you're allowed, they say do whatever you want once you are in the university. Very similar thing. It checks. If you have the permission, whatever you need to do, it says, okay, you can go ahead and do it, right? So it's giving you governance based on somebody, who has. मैंने टेबल बनाया अपना, मैंने कहा जी XYZ groups are allowed to do whatever. ABC groups can read only. So when somebody from ABC group will come and try to access, Unity Catalog will first of all intercept their request and see, are they allowed to do this or not, right? To do this query or not, or modify this or not. It'll say, no, you're not allowed to do this. It'll reject, right? So it's a layer, security layer that allows your checks whether you're allowed to do this or not. That's what governance is, right? For everything. सीमा बना रहे हो, तो it is a checking layer. And I will show you the picture that will clarify these things, right? Let me see if I can show you that picture of Unity Catalog. ये Unity Catalog की basically, this is the idea. This is the idea, okay? आप अपना काम कर रहे हो, you are doing with the storage what you've been doing. Here it checks everything. It unlocks whatever it is if you are going over here, right? This is the idea of Unity Catalog. जो कुछ भी आपने काम करना है, this is the guy who will keep an eye whether you're allowed or not and what not, right? हाँ, बोलो. Exactly. 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 अब सिर्फ उसके अंदर जो डेटाबेस की जो कैटलॉगिंग है और डेटाबेस की सिक्योरिटी लेयर है, द ओनली थिंग इज इट इज वेरी लिमिटेड, राइट? तो उसके अंदर आपने सिक्योरिटी बना दी, बट इट डजंट गवर्न मैनी अदर थिंग्स, राइट? अब यहाँ पे ऑडिटिंग इज सेपरेट थिंग, मेटाडेटा मैनेजमेंट, उसके उसके जो काफी फीचर हैं डेटाबेस इंजन के, दैट इज व्हाट यूनिटी कैटलॉग इज डूइंग. मैनी वाइड स्प्रेड फीचर्स सारे कंबाइन किए उन्होंने यूनिटी कैटलॉग में. सीक्वल सर्वर के अंदर मास्टर डेटाबेस होता है जिसके अंदर सारे डेटाबेस रजिस्टर होते हैं, कौन कौन से डेटाबेस हैं. जब आप डेटाबेस को क्वेरी करते हो, इट चेक्स कि डेटाबेस एग्जिस्ट करते हैं कि नहीं वहां पे, राइट? सो अंडरनीथ इज डूइंग लॉट ऑफ, सो दिस डज वेरी सिमिलर थिंग्स, but it does for everything, right? But yes, very similar stuff it does. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh, good. कौन देगा इसका जवाब? ये तो हमारा स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट ऑफ द कोर्स था, राइट? हम जब, हाँ, अब आई मीन ये हमने जो पहला लेक्चर किया था विच वाज ऑन डेटाबेस पार्टीशनिंग, ठीक है? अब हमने बताया था कि डेटाबेस जो है, यू कैन पार्टीशन डेटा बट इट डज नॉट स्केल, द कंप्यूट डज नॉट स्केल, ठीक है? तो जब हम इस स्केलेबिलिटी के ऊपर आए, स्पार्क वाली, दैट कैन स्केल टू वॉट एवर, देन यू हैव लॉट ऑफ शॉर्ट कमिंग्स. तो उन शॉर्ट कमिंग्स को मॉडर्न एंटरप्राइज एनवायरमेंट्स में और क्लाउड एनवायरमेंट्स में हैंडल करने के लिए देन दे डिड दिस इनोवेशंस, ठीक है? तो वी आर, हमारा जो प्रॉब्लम डोमेन है इट इज द बिग डेटा. अब एमएल के ऊपर जितना डेटा आ रहा होता है टेलीमेट्री का, वो डेटाबेस हैंडल ही नहीं कर सकता. आपका कोई एमएल मॉडल डज नॉट यूज एनी डेटाबेस. दे ऑल यूज डेटाब्रिक्स बेस और स्पार्क बेस सिस्टम्स primarily, right? आपका सारा ओपन एआई इट्स रनिंग ऑन डेटाब्रिक्स. ओपन एआई की सारी ट्रेनिंग्स, एवरीथिंग, मॉडल डेवलपमेंट, एवरीथिंग, डेटाब्रिक्स इज बीइंग यूज्ड. वहाँ डेटाबेस का काम ही नहीं, ना काम कर सकता वो, ठीक है? सो दैट्स व्हाट द इश्यू इज, राइट? So this is the gold standard. Spark and Databricks are the gold standards basically in the big data processing, and these are the enterprise features that say. और इसके अंदर as we know, and उसमें similarly we know कि since it supports SQL, you can give permissions. जिस तरह हम all select modify, you can give these permissions from Unity catalog. Okay, you can specify, and it is the guy who checks what you're doing and whether you're allowed to do this or not. क्योंकि ना स्पार्क को पता है ना डेल्टा को पता है, ठीक है? These things are. Here you can allow fine-grained controls, tables, files, rows, columns. You can do all these permission. और आप एक सेंट्रल जगह पे कर रहे हो, right? In a main catalog or meta store, जहां से everybody is going to go and access everything through. Yeah? That is the idea. Then हमने थोड़ी सी lineage देखी थी अभी तक, right? So it will give you how data is moving across everything. It is really nice way, and the way, और ये it is like delta lake के अंदर जो if it was 10%, delta lake की जो lineage is like 10% compared to Databricks की, right? This is the level of lineage उन्होंने किया at every level, right? आपके डैशबोर्ड हो, नोटबुक्स हो, कॉलम, वर्कफ्लो, whatever, right? इसका architecture is an amazing read also how they did it, right? Where do they capture the data, and how do they do it, right? It's really nice to get under the hood and read these things and take a look how it is architected, right? Because this is not only कि हम एक चीज को at a high level सीख रहे हैं, it is also for us to learn how to design systems, right? As architects, right? ये बड़ी critical चीज होती है कि आप किसी system को पढ़ो and develop your understanding के how you're going to develop these things, right? कल को अपनी organizations के अंदर you will see how people are thinking. और जब आपके पास ये knowledge होगी ना how something is designed, you can give ideas. It's an amazing source of information when you read these things, okay, how it is designed, and they have given very nice information. It'll really make you stand out and make amazing decisions when you read these things and develop your understanding how to design systems, right? अब यहाँ पे for example ये मैंने टेबल बनाया है, it show the lineage is showing me कि ये यहाँ से आ रहा है, इन दो टेबल्स में से आ रहा है, for example. इसका कौन सा कॉलम, for example, this is composed of these two things, for example. Customer, इसका जो ID है, maybe ID is coming from customer ID and first name is coming from over here, right? For example. So you can see these kind of things, which of course Delta does not show. वो आपको वो दिखा देगा, आपको history दिखा देगा कि what has happened, but this kind of stuff is simply not there, right? आपके पास कॉलम्स हैं, आपने टेबल बनाया है, आपको हर कॉलम की आपको लीनेज दिखा देगा. और ये बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट चीज होती है when you're designing your transformation and actions कि if I modify this or if I want to change this column, will it affect something else? कभी आपके रिक्वायरमेंट आ गई कि कॉलम को टाइप चेंज करनी है, कुछ और चेंज करना है, you can easily find out कि what I am आपका स्कीमा इवॉल्व हो रहा है, whatever it is, you can see everything that it depends on or something that is dependent on this, right? So it shows you Databricks के अंदर जो Unity catalog है. And I mean, you don't have to go to Databricks, right? You can take the Unity catalog, implement this on your own premises, and get all this functionality, right? This is the beauty of this, right? It's a great exercise to do this. करेंगे अभी मैं अपना वो कर रहा हूँ environment setup with the Unity catalog as well. So you can see this in action on your own environment, right? It's really very beautiful thing and amazing exercise to do this. फिर अब जो मर्जी टेबल बना रहा है, जो मर्जी ऑब्जेक्ट बना रहा है, फाइलें उसके अंदर रजिस्टर हो रही हैं, you can search, you can discover what is there, right? Everything you can find out, right? किस स्कीमा के अंदर पड़े हुए हैं, where they are, right? And so on and so forth. So many insights it shows. या इसके ऊपर कौन सी queries हो रही हैं frequently, right? You can see the amount of intelligence that it gathers and the metadata it gathers, right? On your own environment, right? ये चीजें आपको हेल्प करेंगी. फॉर एग्जांपल अब क्वेरीज आ रही, यू कैन सी यार these are the frequent query coming, maybe I need to fix my partitioning, right? And see if I can partition it better and what I've partitioned this on already, right? So these are very important things basically, right? And then एक बड़ी अहम चीज होती है इन सिस्टम्स के अंदर, to be able to share data, right? How can I share universally? अभी हम क्या करते हैं अभी तक कि हम अपना डेटा फ्रेम हमने पार्के फाइल में डाल दिया और we gave it to someone, right? Now what happened was Delta, for example, in the Delta Lake table, they created something called Delta sharing, and they made it an open protocol that whole industry has adopted, right? that you can seamlessly share data from Databricks and from Delta, basically, right? So it's really, really nice and amazing feature they've done for the sharing of data. Otherwise, हम जो universally करते हैं, file भेज दी over email, FTP कर दिया, on and on and on. Now, the latest data you can pick up any time, right? If you can enable this. So enterprises के अंदर it's very important to understand how what happens, what are the critical things, and how do you enable them. So ये आपको सारा कुछ enable करता है basically, right? This one it's a they say vendor lock-in. I mean, since it's Delta level, right? And Delta is an open protocol, and a lot of companies are working on the Delta directly. The layer is open, so that's why they're saying you don't have to worry about any Databricks or anybody else, right? Use it however you want to do it. तो आप किसी भी अपने उसके अंदर लेके सॉफ्टवेयर के अंदर you can work with Delta directly as well, right? And Microsoft and all these companies have done this, right? Microsoft का Dynamics है, मैं आपको दिखाऊंगा. Recently I gave it to a customer, this thing. मैं दिखाता हूँ आपको. It was very nice architecture, and he asked me, I'll show you this one as well. Just the power of Delta and these kind of things, right? And he was working with data ingestion into CRM from MongoDB, right? ये Saudi Airlines के architects थे, and they were asking this thing. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yes. So this was the, let me see, where is my response to him? So they asked, they have dynamic CRM similar to SAP. And they said, we want to be able to, for example, MongoDB हमारे पास, it has 75 million records, 200 attributes, incremental of 10 million records per day. ठीक है? वो कह रहे हम हमें बता आप किस तरह करोगे, इंजेक्शन करोगे इसके अंदर JSON फॉर्मेट के अंदर, right? So I gave him the response basically on this one based on Delta, right? Let me see where my response is. I want to see my response. I don't know why my email is not coming. So now it will come. Okay, there you go, right? So I told him, I said, the best thing is कि आप उसको ADF is our data factory for to do the data pipelines, right? I said, what you can do is we can get the MongoDB data and store as a Delta Lake. ADLS is Microsoft का Delta Lake storage है. But मैंने कहा आप उसको Delta Lake format में डालें, and you can see how common Delta Lake is कि Microsoft का जो CRM system है, SaaS, it can load Delta Lake directly. So all you do is take the MongoDB data, stick it into Delta, और आपकी वो जो job है data pipeline है ADF, Azure Data Factory, to create data pipelines. So this is the solution I gave it to them, right? कि आप MongoDB से किस तरह करोगे and how you can write to Delta format, right? So this is so common, right? So understanding how Delta works underneath, nobody knows this outside, right? अभी Dynamics से सब काम कर रहे हैं, they are architects, right? But since they have no idea about Delta, this is what happens, right? So that's why it's so critical to understand underneath what is happening, right? क्योंकि these things you can pick up Delta Lake, you can take it anywhere else also. But if you don't deal with it, don't understand what is happening, you will not be able to give and create solutions and have a constructive conversations with anybody, right? So that's why it's so important, right? It's a big company, architects उनके सारे, they could have found this out, but information नहीं होती, and nobody has dealt with this from underneath on these kind of things, right? So it's very, very valuable again to understand how these things work and what you're proposing and how it will work, right? So that's what Delta Lake is. It allows very nice and way of sharing data, right, with anybody else. Open protocol, very similar to Pi Arrow that we did. The Arrow protocol to share data in real time. We can do exchange data. Delta tables, we can use Delta sharing. Yeah. So basically, जो पहले था, I want to see what is happening with this slide. Just a moment. So this is what is happening, right? अभी तक जो हम काम कर रहे थे, हम अपना काम कर रहे थे, हमारा क्लस्टर था, it was over here. Everybody was using in their own workspace. जिस तरह हम अभी काम कर रहे थे, right? And the Unity catalog, we can specify, right? आप एक catalog बनाए, you can say this catalog and its clusters are over here for this workspace or that or for everyone. You can centrally manage everything, or you can have different catalogs for production, different for dev, different for something else, right? You can control all of these things, right? मेरे अगर for example users are in different companies, say I can do user management of one company in one catalog, user management of other company in the other catalog, apply to different workspaces. They can all work and they can do different things, right? Many scenarios, every possible scenario that you can think of, Unity catalog allows that to happen, right? Instead of working in silos, अभी आपकी workspace बनी हुई है, you cannot sharing कर भी लो, but after that across the enterprise you have very minimal thing, right? And now with Unity catalog you can do all of that. Abhi Hive Metastore is there in your environment as well, but in your free account you have Unity catalog enabled, right? So let me just open that one as well. So I can go into databricks.com. And I can say, for example, my own account. And I can go into this one. And I will use my auto account. ये मेरा अपना Microsoft account है because I have access to enterprise environments from customers on Databricks. So now when you go into and you can go into catalog, okay? This is how you enter the Unity catalog. This is part of your assignment, okay? उसके अंदर मैं थोड़ी सी introduction दी थी, but here it is, right? The Unity catalog, and you can create a new catalog, right? You can create a catalog. So for example, I can say PA1, and इसके अंदर you can do many different things. We'll go into this one, we'll see. But right now, I can say use default storage. Catalog is PA1, for example. I'll create. Okay, it says already exists. Let me do PA2. कौन ये डेटाब्रिक्स के अंदर अगर आप हाँ हाँ वो होता इस वजह से है कि sometimes what happens is कि either the default storage is not activated. आप जब कमांड से बना लोगे ना अगली दफा वो क्या कहते हैं बनाने देगा आपको. You can try that. ठीक है, you can try that kind of thing. तो यहाँ पे you can, अब मैंने कैटलॉग बनाई है ना, I can assign it to different workspaces. ये सिर्फ यहाँ पे मसला है, in the free account you cannot see other workspaces. But let me see if it allows. It will not allow. उसमें लिखा हुआ था कि sharing is not allowed or data catalog cannot be. And यहाँ पे privileges हैं, right? You can, for example, grant. ये सारी permissions आ गई हुई यहाँ पे. आप क्या बना सकते हो, create and all those kind of things. You can add different people and give them different permissions, right? और आप, for example, if you want to give permission, somebody want to access, आप उसको permission दे सकते हो, and I will get this kind of, So you can manage all these things, right? Let me see what else is there. Put tags वगैरह लगाने and all that, right? So anyway, I will cancel this thing. But generally, for example, because of the versioning, because of everything, हम usually notebooks के अंदर बनाते हैं so we can version them into Git, right? This is what we want to do. So usually, while this is fine, that we are doing it in the browser, but you want to control all of this stuff, from notebooks or the Python files, right? So you can version. यहाँ से आपको again anybody can start working. सी permissions है, it's very difficult to control. ये database के अंदर भी हम ये करते हैं कि anytime we're modifying the schema and all that, we can control through some kind of scripts, right? So I go over here and we can see, let me see if I go refresh. I'm Catalog Explorer and I can go into PA2. And then from here, जब ये catalog बन गई, you have all the policies, then you start creating different things. ठीक है? So again, interface is pretty straightforward. It does not come between you and the system, right? You set it up, आप permission set करते हैं, and then that's all there is, right? इसमें एक और बड़ी interesting चीज है, which is pretty much every enterprise does, which is that अगर आपके पास कोई identity provider है, for example, Microsoft का अपना जो identity provider है, that is Entra in the open source, right? So if I go back over here, just to show you, I can go into Entra. Yeah, more into cloud systems है, लेकिन this is what is being used pretty much everywhere, right? So I can go into this one, for example. And this is an identity and access management system जिससे पूरी organizations के users हैं, hundreds and thousands. So instead कि आप उनको again you create new ID passwords, आप उनको connect करते हैं, आप सारों को import और synchronize करते हैं इसके अंदर. And then you can put them in different groups. उसमें से आप ग्रुप बनाएंगे अपना, आप कहेंगे ये वाला ग्रुप जो है इसको ये परमिशंस है, उसको ये परमिशंस है, राइट? एंड नाइस थिंग अबाउट दैट इज वो ग्रुप बना हुआ है वहां पे एंट्रा के अंदर, और वहां पे आप इंपोर्ट करके कह रहे हैं इस ग्रुप की ये परमिशंस है. सो यू क्रिएट द यूजर्स एंड देयर ग्रुप्स इन अ सेंट्रल प्लेस, एंड यूनिटरी कैटलॉग अलाउज यू टू मैनेज परमिशंस ओनली, राइट? सो यू डोंट हैव टू कीप ऑन रिपीटिंग कि वहां पे एक बंदा को ग्रुप में से चला गया है. And how do you manage these things over here? I'm not sure why this is blinking like this. So, you know, so, जी. ग्रुप्स का मतलब क्या होता है? किस तरह लेट से आपके 4-5 डेवलपर्स हैं, राइट? आपके 4-5 डेवलपर्स हैं, अब आपने सारों को सेम परमिशन देनी है. सो इंस्टेड ऑफ डूइंग ऑल ऑफ देम वन बाय वन एंड यू गिव देम सेपरेट परमिशन, व्हाट वी डू इज वी क्रिएट ग्रुप्स. और ग्रुप में आपने ग्रुप डाला, फॉर एग्जांपल डेवलपर्स, डेव ऐप 1, आप कोई एप्लीकेशन 1 है उसके ऊपर आप काम कर रहे हैं, तो आप ग्रुप बनाएंगे, जितने डेवलपर्स हैं उसके सारों को डालेंगे और यूनिटी कैटलॉग को कहेंगे ये वाला जो ग्रुप है ना इसको XYZ परमिशंस दे दो, ठीक है? तो अगर कल कोई जाता है उस ग्रुप में से, उस टीम में से कोई नया आता है, कोई टीम में से मूव करता है, कोई किसी और टीम से मूव करता है, ऑल यू हैव टू डू इज यू जस्ट हैव टू चेंज देयर ग्रुप. वो जो परमिशंस हैं दे आर ऑलरेडी देयर. तो इंडस्ट्री के अंदर यू डोंट गिव इंडिविजुअल परमिशन, यू गिव ग्रुप लेवल परमिशंस ऑलवेज. और जो एंट्रा है, फॉर एग्जांपल अब मैं जाता हूं इसके अंदर, यहाँ पे यू विल सी, यहाँ पे व्हाइल देयर आर यूजर्स, देयर आर, फॉर एग्जांपल लेट मी जस्ट शो यू, इफ आई गो बैक इनटू होम, देयर आर यूजर्स एंड देयर शुड बी ग्रुप्स. ग्रुप है इसके अंदर. तो ग्रुप्स के अंदर, फॉर एग्जांपल देयर आर डिफरेंट ग्रुप्स, यू कैन क्रिएट योर ओन ग्रुप्स. और यहाँ से आप ग्रुप बनाओगे यहाँ पे, एंड वी कॉल देम सिक्योरिटी ग्रुप्स, राइट? तो उसके अंदर आप वो बनाते हो, यूजर्स को डालते हो, और वही ग्रुप ऑटोमेटिकली डेटा ब्रिक्स विल पुल इट. अब जब माइक्रोसॉफ्ट का सिस्टम है आइडेंटिटी सिस्टम, इट्स कॉल्ड एंट्रा, ठीक है? देयर आर अदर थर्ड पार्टी सिस्टम्स एज वेल. AWS का अपना है, गूगल का अपना सिस्टम है, बट गूगल कैन से ब्रिंग योर यूजर्स फ्रॉम एंट्रा, or Microsoft can say bring your users or your identity from GCP. They all work together. ये एक अलग टॉपिक है, आइडेंटिटी मैनेजमेंट है। मैं क्लाउड का जो मेरा कोर्स है उसके अंदर मैं पढ़ा रहा हूँ ये एक्चुअली ये वाला पार्ट। बट दिस व्हाट हैपेंस, राइट। तो ये ग्रुप्स का मकसद है। दूसरा यूनिटी कैटलॉग वेयर इट इज स्टोर्ड, दिस उसका जो स्टोरेज है, जो सर्विस लेयर है, दिस इज ऑल गिवन टू यू एज पार्ट ऑफ योर सर्विस। सो दे डोंट शो अस Databricks where it is hidden or where it is provisioned actually जो आप कर रहे हो, ठीक है। Maybe is there a database behind? Is there something else? They don't show us that thing. Okay. तो जिस तरह फॉर एग्जांपल आप डेल्टा टेबल भी देख लो, you will not see the files underneath. उसका जो वॉल्यूम है, जो स्टोरेज एंड ऑल दोज काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स, राइट। जिस तरह हम अभी देख रहे हैं अपने स्टोरेज के ऊपर, बिकॉज बिहाइंड द सीन्स उन्हें स्टोरेज भी हाइड की हुई जहां पे दे आर डूइंग ऑल ऑफ दैट स्टफ, राइट। तो एंड लॉट ऑफ टाइम यू डोंट नीड टू, बट इफ यू नीड टू सी व्हाट इज हैपनिंग एंड व्हाट नॉट, लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स आर हिडन, बट यू शुड नो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग। बट इनकी जो कोर सर्विसेज है, जनरली स्पीकिंग, in a SaaS or PaaS environments, which are two of the models of cloud computing, they hide a lot of these details from you. They said, we are providing you a service, do your work, concentrate on your work. You see your details and implementation details, we will not share with you. We will manage it ourselves. Just use the functionality, right? This is the promise or the premise of PaaS, platform as a service, or software as a service, right? So this is what Databricks is giving you. It's a PaaS/SaaS environment, and you are simply, they said, should not be concerned with any of the implementation details, what is happening, right? जबकि आपकी अपनी environment के अंदर you have complete visibility, कहाँ पे storage है, कहाँ पे क्या चीज बन रही है, how you're doing load balancing and on, right? यहाँ पे everything is hidden from you. क्या load balancing है, क्या high availability and all those things. You have no idea. They are saying we will take care of everything. It's a highly available service. We'll keep it available. जो भी compute है, what not, it is available to you. You should not be concerned, right? So this is what it is basically. So that's what groups are. Groups are a way to manage permissions for multiple people in a universal way, right? So all the time we are using groups. आपकी अगर 10 एप्लीकेशंस कर रही हैं, 10 डिफरेंट टीम्स हैं, कोई डिफरेंट वेंडर्स हैं, यू विल पुट डिफरेंट पीपल इन डिफरेंट ग्रुप्स, और उनको डिफरेंट परमिशन देंगे, उनके लिए डिफरेंट वर्क स्पेस बनाएंगे, ठीक है। सो एवरीथिंग इज हैंडल्ड थ्रू ग्रुप्स। तो देखिए मैंने आपको बताया था कि यूनिटी कैटलॉग क्या करती है, राइट। आपने कुछ करना है, कुछ काम करना है, इट इज ट्रांसपेरेंट टू यू, बट एवरीथिंग गोज थ्रू यूनिटी कैटलॉग। जिस तरह हमने डेल्टा टेबल बनाया था, हमने सिर्फ अपना काम किया था और उसके से इट वाज डूइंग एवरीथिंग फॉर अस। स्पार्क के अंदर हमने डेटा फ्रेम सेव करना है, कुछ करना, हमने सिर्फ ऑप्शन ऑन इनेबल की थी उसकी कि हमें प्लीज ये डेल्टा, ये जो हमारा है वो है, इसको फॉर्मेट डेल्टा कर दो एंड सेव इट, एंड देन इट सिंपली वाज राइटिंग, वी गिव द पाथ, राइट। सो इफ यू लुक एट इट इन आवर दिस थिंग, राइट, हमने जब यहाँ पे डेल्टा टेबल के साथ वी स्टार्टेड डीलिंग विद इट, राइट। So all we did was we just said format is delta. तो path हमने दिया था, but that's all, same data frame, कोई different चीज नहीं थी। And same thing will happen in Unity catalog also. हमने उसको कहना है कि इसको, and we don't have to do this anymore, right? In Databricks, क्योंकि Databricks का default format is delta already. You can specify to be explicit, but you don't have to. Yeah. इन Databricks. तो हमने अब देख रहे हो सारा कुछ आप करते जा रहे हो, आप सिर्फ बता रहे हो उसको कि फॉर्मेट इज डेल्टा, आप रीड कर रहे हो, राइट कर रहे हो, कुछ कर रहे हो, इट्स इनविजिबल, राइट। सो वेरी सिमिलरली दैट थिंग इज इनविजिबल टू यू एज वेल, एंड इट इज डूइंग व्हाट, जो कुछ आप कर रहे हो ऑटोमेटिकली ये Databricks आपको पैसे चार्ज करता है, राइट, बिकॉज इट इज गिविंग यू लॉट ऑफ फंक्शनैलिटी, और बिहाइंड द सीन्स लॉट ऑफ कंप्यूट इज यूज्ड to do the auditing, lineage, many different things. There's a compute that they are providing that is doing all of that, not just to do your work, but to provide these common services as well, right? You see the amount of work being done behind the scenes. They are using their compute to provide, and their storage, right, to provide all these services. That's why it costs you, right? कि वो उन्हें जो सारा कुछ जो प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं दैट इज हिडन. आप सिर्फ कह रहे हो मेरे सर्वरलेस कंप्यूट है, आई विल पे फॉर ट्रांजैक्शन, बट जो ट्रांजैक्शन कॉस्ट आप कर रहे हो उसके अंदर इज अ बिल्ट इन कॉस्ट फॉर लॉट ऑफ दीज सर्विसेज, राइट? अगर आपसे वो लेट से 1 सेंट चार्ज कर रहे हैं पर ट्रांजैक्शन, आपकी जितनी भी ट्रांजैक्शन है उसका एक सर्टन परसेंट इज गोइंग टूवर्ड्स फॉर द प्लेटफॉर्म एज वेल, राइट? Not just your compute, but towards the platform and the platform services, right? And this is the notion of SaaS and PaaS environments, right? In cloud computing. So basically what happens, administrator है आप, आपने सारी उसकी credentials, उसमें catalogs, उसमें access policies सारी डाल दी, right? And you have configured your cloud storage. ADLS is your data lake storage, right? This is the data lake storage, which is distributed in nature. It has folder structure and it has permission structure, right? So that's what there are certain industry standard notion of, for example, data lakes, what it's composed of and what it needs to provide, right? But this is what data lake is, right? So आपने कोई query की, whether it's Scala, independent, it does not matter, right? कौन सी लैंग्वेज में आपने क्वेरी की है, राइट? आपको जो एंड पॉइंट है क्लस्टर और सीक्वल एंड पॉइंट, आपको क्लस्टर एंड पॉइंट जो हम स्पार्क मास्टर देखते आ रहे हैं 77, राइट? ऑफ कोर्स दैट इज हिडन फ्रॉम अस इन यूनिटी कैटलॉग, सॉरी इन डेटाब्रिक्स एज वेल, राइट? तो फर्स्ट जो आपकी क्वेरी आती है इट चेक्स कि यार इट गेट्स चेक्ड कि are the metadata and the things available, जो क्वेरी हो रही है, होने लगी है, और does this user have permissions? तो यहां से जब क्वेरी भेजते हो it gets checked, goes to Unity catalog. Unity catalog intercepts this, right? And say I will verify all of this stuff. ये assume manage identity idea is, right, कि आपकी जो user है when it comes it needs to assume, for example, I want to see, go to the this guy storage. Think about it. Think of it like this, right? It needs to check on your behalf. Do you have permissions? So what it does is it assumes a certain identity, and then it says, "Can I see this?" If it can, then it goes, "Yes, you can go and see it." Think of it, for example, like आप आते हो किसी सिस्टम में, फिंगरप्रिंट है, अब सिक्योरिटी गार्ड को नहीं पता डज दिस फिंगरप्रिंट इज अलाउड दिस और नॉट, राइट? तो क्या करेगा, कहते यार लेट मी assume your fingerprint and check the downstream systems. I don't know if it's a good analogy or not. What is the best way? Maybe I think best way could be आपका ID password है, आप कहते हो यार ये मैं कर रहा हूँ, somebody can check. No, I think I need to find a better analogy. Anyway, Unity Catalog assumes your identity and checks whether you can access or not. ये थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा complex चक्कर है how it does. I don't want to go into the details of manage identity, but it checks on your behalf whether you can reach this or not, whether you're allowed or not. And if you are, for example, it says yes, you are ready to go ahead. So it checks all of that. It's a very quick thing, and it has a cache of everything, right? So it caches, so it doesn't have to go and do this expensive operation every time. Aapki query is allowed, and you are allowed to go ahead, right? That gate opens for you, and you're allowed to go ahead and do this query, whatever you're doing, right? So this is a high-level flow. So again, जब आपकी query आती है to the endpoint, it gets intercepted to Unity Catalog. Sorry, मेरी बिल्ली आ गई थी जरा. So it gets intercepted by the Unity catalog, and then it checks that if you have permissions, if the data that you're trying to connect, it is there, and if everything is okay, then it allows, it sends okay back to the endpoint that yes, you're allowed to go and do it. Okay? And then whatever auditing, lineage based on the query and all that, it continues, right? It does behind the scenes all of that.